Hello everyone, and welcome to another Steel Division 2 patch preview, as there's an upcoming patch coming soon to the live version. This is a preview build, so things here still might be subject to change, but most of it should come in the way it is currently to the live version. And the most important thing is most likely in this patch the change to PTRS and other small caliber weapons and how they deal damage to units inside of transports that they kill. The damage to transports and the damage to armored units of PTRS and PTRDs is unchanged, but what has changed is that when they kill a transport, the units inside doesn't fully die, but rather takes damage, and only takes 4 damage. So small squads in jeeps, like sniper squads or so, still, or other PTRS squads, still die when they get hit by PTRS, but bigger squads like Grenadiers, Guardias, and so on only take 4 damage, so they're down to around half of their strength, and then will be on the map fully stressed out, so they can't instantly shoot back. So if the PTR squad is behind your lines, it still can try to run away, but you then have a unit at hand to hunt it down with, and you don't lose a full-on unit to a 10 or 15 point unit, which obviously makes these guys quite a bit less cost efficient than before, and they can't snipe like full-on columns behind enemy lines as easily as they were able to do it before, which for sure is a nice change and a nice fix for a hot topic that came up over the last half a year or so a lot in discussions. And yep, that is one of the main focuses of this patch. The other main focus in one of the other big changes is the buff to the Commonwealth, or especially the Commonwealth's tanks segment. And the first tank to get a buff there is the Crumble. Crumble Mark 5s are back up to speed. They are back up to 63 kmh road speed. So the 6 Airborne and the Panzerna for sure get a big buff out of this, as the Crumble is a nice tank for its damage output with its price. But the speed was a bit lackluster before. Now it's back to be a fast boy as well, so can be used for quick breakthrough. The Crumble 7 is still slower, as obviously its heavier armor makes it slower. But the Crumble Mark 5s are back to being speedy boys, and that is for sure a lovely buff to these two divisions and their armored segment. And another Commonwealth division that got its armored section buffed is the 15th Scots, as their Churchills, the Churchill Mark 4, which also is in some Soviet divisions, and the Churchill Mark 5, the support weapon, with the 95mm HE guns, got cheaper. So these are now down to 50 points from 60, and down to 50 from 65 points for the Churchill Mark 5. Plus, some of the Churchill versions also get an availability buff, the Churchill Mark 4s and the Churchill Mark 6. So the British, for sure, now have a bit more cost efficiency on their tanks and a bit more numbers, which could make the 15 Scots really strong in dealing with some other armored divisions, as the Churchills already traded pretty solid against other tanks before, though obviously their speed is highly annoying, but the damage output that they now got for their price is really, really high. With the 6-pounder and 90mm frontal armor, they for sure can deal with a lot of other tanks, and having an HE tank for 50 points also is really, really strong. Then, the last big change in this patch is a buff to all bigger flamethrower squadrons, with one flamethrower in the infantry section. So all of them are currently at 25 points, like for example the Rangers, those 6-man, 1 flamethrower smoke squadrons, and they all went down to 20 points. So Rangers went down to 20 points, the Sturm Pioneers went down to 20 points, and so on. All these squadrons, there's quite a couple of them. Most of them Sturm Pioneers, Hungarians, and so on. And all of them went down to 20 points, so should be quite a bit more worthwhile. Before, usually most people didn't take them, especially not in competitive play, as 25 for a 6-man squad always feels a bit underwhelming. And flamethrower is nice, but TNT usually is better, so they were not taken too much. Now they will be more worthwhile, and we should see quite a couple more of them. A unit that got nerfed is the Engineers of the Americans, that went up to 25 points, as with its M1 Grant and its Thompson. It's a pretty strong TNT unit, and Pioneers, for example, of the Germans are 25 points as well, so it just makes sense that these go up there as well. Then another buff nerf to the US, as obviously the two US divisions on the front are pretty strong. The Task Force 45 and the 2nd US are really highly performing in all metrics. And one nerf to these Americans is that their M10s, tank destroyers, now carry only 2 APCR shells instead of 3. So a slight nerf to the Americans in that regard. You can't shoot as many 2000 meter range shots with these M10 tank destroyers anymore, which means that you have to get to 1750 meter range earlier, or you have to bring in supplies for these quite early on. So yep, M10s and also Hellcats. The Hellcats also having a similar nerf, also down to 2 APCR shells. So the 2nd Indian Head getting the biggest nerf out of this, which is absolutely warranted. It's a really, really strong division, so nerfing them a bit here is totally fine. Then another unit that is overperforming and got nerfed are radio mortars. So all the radio mortars now cost 5 points more than their equivalent. For example, these 81mm mortars now cost 65 points instead of the 60 point that you pay for a normal mortar version. I would still say they are worthwhile taking. Radio on mortars is just such a big buff. But you now, if you have the option between these two, it's not an instant take for this. You can have a decision to make, and these are in general just a slight bit less cost efficient, which is fine. And then a buff to some units in the anti-air department is that Crusaders AA Mark 1 and the half-track, or not the half-track, but the but Oberblitz and the half-track, the SDKFZ 7+1 flak feelings now have better availability. These Mark 1s went up from 124 to 246, and the same happened with the flak feeling trucks. All of these now have 246 availability as well. If the division has fewer than that, fewer flak feeling trucks, they might not have the C-phase card, or they might only have A-phase card available, but you get them way more card efficient than before. And then one big thing that got buffed is the cargo rate. The cargo rate, I'm not quite sure on which plane it is again. It's, okay, yeah, here we go. On Hermann Göring, the cargo rate off-map now deals significantly more damage with each shot. It's a pretty expensive recon plane off-map, so, and it only fires one shell, but that one shell now obliterates everything it hits. Like, the damage is really nuke level nearly. So cargo rate is now a fun unit to use. Another off-map that got nerfed though is the Soviet off-map that is the most used off-map in the game, I would say. Yes. The 152mm of the Soviets is really, really strong. And it's in a lot of divisions. The strongest one of these, 44th, as it gets 2 cards of these. And it was really overperforming, and the decks it was in overperformed with it mostly as well. So it went up from 120 to 170 points in cost, which I would say is correct, because this is still the strongest off-map. It does a lot of damage, it does a lot of stunts, and you have 3 shots per off-map vehicle here. So 170 points, I would say, is a fair price point, and nerfs this off-map to a price where taking it, you actually have to do some damage with it, and it's just like, oh yeah, I have it, I now take it, and wherever I shoot it, it will pay off anyways. Now, you have to be a bit more considerate with it, and you have to maybe do some decision making there. If you buy this one, you now get 2 less infantry squad basically. So that's something that you have to consider now when bringing this along. But I would still say we will see quite a bit of it, as it's still a pretty strong unit for sure. And then Indian Scouts have been fixed. One of my most used divisions got a slight buff here, as their rifles now have the exact amount of ammo, which is nice. And then there are a couple of buffs to divisions directly, where also one of the Commonwealth divisions that we already had a look on, the Panzerna, is the first one to get a buff, as Panzerna, one of the Polish divisions, now has a new kind of loadout for some of the infantry. Yeah, the infantry is now special. They have the Saperji now as a 12-man TNT squadron with a Bren gun, a Piat, and a TNT. So a really interesting loadout for an infantry unit. And their flamethrower squadron also now is a 12-man squadron with a flamethrower, 4 stands, 1 Bren, 6 Lee Enfields. So really, really hot loadouts here for these guys. Yeah, some unique infantry units here for the Polish, together with the buffs for the Cromwells. This should be quite cool. And then another division that got a buff that could use it was Turina. Turina now has a card of extra AA, 1 card of 25mm AA coming in this division as well. So you have 2 good AA cards here, which helps this air tap to really get through, where you have the U2s, the IL2s to get some early damage. And their fighters beforehand were okay, but yeah, now they have some AA that helps out. Turina in general, a solid deck with Strelky SVTs, Sturmoviki Rocks, and so on, and a tank tap that is all about T-34s. It's one of the classic Soviet divisions, and now it also has the AA tap to protect itself from enemy air spam. Third Guards Tank Corps also finally got a buff after receiving only nerfs in the past, and really topping hard in win rate, from being one of the top to rather being low on the win rate ratio. It now got a buff in the form of 2 ISU 152 cards that can be fully chosen as you like it, and that is helpful, as that gives it a bit more HE and for a cheap price. It's not quite an SU 152 in its cost efficiency for HE, and you obviously already have IS2s, so HE is really what you want to deal with infantry, but you have another choice between the MCHAs and the IS2s to choose from, which is quite nice here. And then 2 small buffs to the newest divisions currently out. Nov got a slight buff in the cost of their anti-tank slots, and Wrestelsprung got 1 more 1-point slot for infantry added in the infantry tab. So, yep, those are the changes. Ooh, one I nearly missed out, I jumped over, is that SS Legionaries are now 25 points. So, yeah, they are not as overperforming now either. And Stravniki officers and Stravniki autos got a slight buff. Stravniki autos in availability and 43rd reserve. They now, the auto, where is the auto one? I am blind. Okay, there, the auto Stravniki now come in 6 and 9 availability instead of 3, 6, 9. So this card is way more card efficient than before. And the Stravniki officers here went down to 35 points to be on par with other Stravnikis, but just having the fanatical buff on top of it. So this infantry tab here now is a bit more efficient as well now. And yep, should make 43rd pretty strong in the infantry tab, to be honest. The only issue of this division will forever stay that it only has 85mm AA, no mid range AA in its tab there. So you can pin it down with artillery pretty quickly, or with just overwhelming it with air, though the LA7 is helping out there. But that's it with the patch. It's not the most massive one, but I would say the PTRS change is quite significant. The buff to Commonwealth is welcome. We will see how many 6-man flamethrower squadrons we will see on the battlefield. And yeah, nice nerfs to the most overperforming divisions with the Americans. And in general, balance in Steel Division is only getting better, and it was already pretty great before. So yeah, Steel Division is really at a nice spot. Thanks to Eugen for putting in still the effort in here. Can't wait for Turda. I hope you see it the same way. And I hope to see you in the next one. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing so that you see when more Steel Division 2 content is coming up on the channel. That's it. Have a nice day, and goodbye.